Welcome to Too Long to Read Therapist Edition. Today we're going to talk about The Financial Feminist, Overcoming the Patriarchy's Bullshit to Master Your Money and Build the Life You Love by Tori Dunlap. So I read this book as part of a book club, and I say that in order to give credit to the people who chose the book, because I'm not the one who chose it. And I think there's a lot of great takeaways, and I want to share those with you. But I will end with a couple of things that bugged me about the book. All right, let's dive right in giving you the names of the chapters so you have an idea of what the book is about. So we have Chapter 1, The Emotions of Money, Chapter 2, Spending, Chapter 3, The Financial Game Plan, Chapter 4, Debt, Chapter 5, Investing, Chapter 6, Earning, Chapter 7, Living a Financial Feminist Lifestyle. Now this review might come off a little disjointed because I'm going back through the book and looking at the sections I highlighted, because if I found them profound enough to mark, they might be helpful to you. Now, in the introduction, Dunlap describes the financial feminism in a quote, and that is, quote, "When you have all you need, build a longer table, not a higher fence," end quote. And then expands this by saying, quote, "Invite people to the table rather than gatekeeping that abundance," end quote. And I like this idea because I believe that people can be business owners in a capitalistic economy without needing to be an asshole. And a good chunk of the meat in this book is really in Chapter 1, and it looks at the psychological impact of money and the systemic sexism that surrounds money. So right in Chapter 1, Dunlap addresses shame. In the book, shame is described as that feeling of not being good enough or being too much that can lead us to worry that we won't be accepted or something bad about us has been or is about to be exposed, leading to isolation and rejection by society at large or our friend group or our family. And this is related to money because in our culture we have strong values about money and spending. Those messages are strong and reinforced by our families growing up. So I once asked a classroom of grad MFT students that if they were out on a date, would they rather have sex with that person or show them their banking dashboard? And a majority said they would rather have sex, and not just because sex is more fun, but because sex was less vulnerable than sharing their financial status. So I think that's really telling in our culture that a lot of us would rather be naked or feel that being naked is less vulnerable than sharing our spending habits or our saving habits or our debt balances or our credit balances. And as part of this, Dunlap looks at 5 narratives she wants to challenge. So the first one is we should know how to money. The second is talking about money is impolite. Third is you'll be rich if you just work hard. I gotta love that message, right? Fourth is unless you're a man, wanting money is selfish. And I'm going to expand a little bit on this one because she articulates that women can't or won't say that we want money for ourselves, but rather money has to be in service of others. And she quotes a money expert, Paula Pan, with women are taught that our labor should be free or poorly compensated, and that somehow there's more nobility in that. Now this is a huge problem because this messaging is reinforced through low wages or low reimbursements in industries that are primarily filled with women, including early education, mental health, elder care, and certain medical fields like pediatricians and primary care. Now, going back to the 5 narratives that Dunlap wants to challenge, the 5th one is money can't buy you happiness, aka wanting money is evil. She goes on to explain that money is power and freedom sure sounds like a lot like happiness. Now, the rest of Chapter 1 walks you through exploring your family history and your personal history with money and how to create a plan for now. And it has these homework or question prompts that have you think about your first memories about money and how that influences you today. And what I did for this was I not only answered journaled about my first memory about money, but I asked my husband what his first memory was. I asked my sister what her first memory was, and I asked my dad what his first memory was. And what was interesting was how different my dad's first memory was compared to my sister and I's. and how different of childhoods we had growing up from his generation to our generation. Now, in Chapter 2, she looks at spending, which can bring up a lot of uncomfortable feelings for people. And I recommend leveraging the help of your therapist if you decide to try the exercises in this chapter. And even if you don't do the exercises, to have a safe place to explore why the exercises were hard to tackle. Because if you're going to skip something, it'll probably be the exercises in this chapter. But she also, in this chapter on spending, looks at the sexist views we have around women spending money and how men spend money. And that women shopping is a long-standing comedic trope that is viewed, and it's viewed that women's purchases are frivolous and unnecessary, sort of like the latte or, the shoes, right? And we don't criticize men for their spending habits. Now, chapters 3 through 5 outline how to create a plan to address your financial goals by acknowledging the debt and tackling it, and then investing in the stock market via retirement plans and independent investing. So I think she does a really great job of normalizing debt and giving you helpful tips to face that debt and scripts for negotiating and talking about debt and spending. And then in chapter 6, she looks at earning. And I like this chapter because it shows how sexism and racism keeps women, particularly BIPOC women, from earning more through the wage gap, but also through the toxic 9-to-5 working environments. But it also touches on something I work with every day when addressing chronic health conditions and chronic pain, that capitalism only values you and finds you worthy if you're capable of producing. And since chronic conditions greatly impact women more than men, this negatively impacts women. So the book wraps up with acknowledging that we all may have different reasons for wanting more money. Maybe it's the freedom that comes from working for yourself, or the freedom to spend more time with your kids, or the freedom to travel, and encouraging you to keep talking about money. I think this book is a great way for people to start when it comes to finances, like a first book to tackle. Dunlap does a great job of trying not to shame people or forcing them to do money a specific way, but allows for flexibility. She also gives a kind of comprehensive explanation of how debt, particularly compound interest, works and investing in the stock market, which we usually don't give this knowledge and financial information to a lot of women. So I really like how she gives this explanation. Now, a couple of things I didn't like about the book. She hates on the more popular money experts, particularly Dave Ramsey. Now, don't get me wrong, I've never been a fan of Dave Ramsey myself, but I know people have found his methods helpful. So I think if you're going to encourage people to find a way that works for them, trashing one of the methods isn't sort of a great look. And the second cringe for me was, though Dunlap doesn't outright discourage investing in sin stocks, there's a definite message to encourage people to invest in their values. Now, sin stocks are companies that may not have the same social or environmental values as you do, such as like oil, cigarette companies, or even businesses like Amazon or Walmart. Now, I think we would all love to have the financial freedom to give our money to businesses that share our values. But if rich old white guys are making money in sin stocks, we should be able to as well and not feel shame if we want to. And finally, information on how to invest in anything besides the stock market was conspicuously absent in this book, including a lot of conversation about how you don't need to be a homeowner to be wealthy. And however, real estate has been a fairly safe investment for decades, and that's pretty well known in the financial world. And that doesn't mean you have to own your own house. But I did find it weird and unsettling that Dunlap didn't discuss how people can invest in real estate, home ownership, short-term or long-term rentals, commercial properties, etc. So all that being said, I think this book is worth reading, but it should not be where you stop reading. We aren't born knowing how to money, and education is step one to beating the patriarchy at their own games. Thanks.